Okay, so this video is going to go through how to do short form with Riverside, as well as how to schedule. We use Buffer, and so we'll show you how we schedule in there. The video that we recorded for how to do it in CapCut is still a good watch to frame kind of like what we're looking for in terms of good storytelling, but Riverside essentially does a lot of that heavy lifting for us by finding some clips through its AI, and we can edit from there. And so I'm going to show you that process. I recommend having multiple tabs open. Maybe not the first time you do this, but as you get a roll, our goal internally is to have 7 short form, which is very, very easy to do because of this tech. And so once you kind of get on a roll, you can have multiple tabs open and kind of go back and forth between them. And so before I dive into that, we do one, you can have as many studios in Riverside as you want. So we do 1 studio per guest. And so you want to make sure that you have the right studio up, and then we just have 1 project in there. And so I basically will have that open for all of these tabs. I'm going to have 1 that's open for the exports menu. So when you come in here, you will have info on what day this was done, and if you shared it and got their email, then their email's here, which can be handy later. Your recording will be in here under the original tab. So this is where, when we were exporting to CapCut, which you may still want to do in the long form, you can grab all of those things and export there. It just depends on how much of custom editing that you want to do. And the way that you edit's a little bit different in here. It's more by transcript, and you'll see that. The made for you is one of the places that we're going to hang out a lot. And so it has a magic clip of the episode where it's done some editing for you. So this could be a good place to start if you want to do long form here, or try. You're able to upload other things. If you have like intro, outro music, or ad inserts or any of that, you can upload into there. It also does a summary show notes, which is nice, and it does chapters, which is really nice, but they'll need to be updated, obviously, if you add certain things in the middle or front. But this is where we'll be for short form. So we have these clips. It has like a little score for how well it thinks it does, which can be greatly skewed because it doesn't really know all industries. So I wouldn't get too distracted by the scores. And when you have one that you like, you can hit edit to play it back. You can preview in here. I find that the preview feature is extra glitchy. So I would just go into edit. And then if you wanted some like smaller, longer than short form, but not really like substantial mid form, they do those as well. And potential hooks too. Some of these are longer than others, so some of these could, though they're in a strange format in terms of like vertical and half horizontal. But yeah, it's got a bunch of new AI stuff in here. I'm sure by the time some people see it, they'll be different. They have posts in here. They also have screenshots, and we sometimes will take these depending on, sometimes they don't clip the most flattering clips, but we can use that for other types of posts as well. So it's like a little tour of this menu, but we will be in the magic clips for 2 of these tabs. So I'm going to go ahead and click edit for one of these tabs. Okay. Once I'm in here, I will pretty much, you can give it feedback too on how good clips are, which can help teach it over time potentially. But your editor is pretty much the transcript, and you can play the clip through, though I will tell you that it has small edits. So if you look at these little squigglies or these dots, it's either pauses or filler words, like, it won't do like, but it tries to get rid of those. So you'll see these little grayed out places, and you can actually see, which is super cool, what the words are. So if it's clipped a word too short, you can actually like drag these a little bit to fix it. And it'll show you as you drag. I'm not dragging because I don't want to mess it up, but you know what the word is before. And so those are kind of how the correlate. You've got your transcript, you've got your track, which kind of overlays for a transcript, which is really, really cool. And so I like to read through the transcript, just skim it, because with these pauses, sometimes it has to reload in between each of them. And I like to just skim to see, is this even a clip I'm remotely interested in? And I'm always thinking about this from my audience's perspective, because sometimes people will dive into their offer, or they're very niche, and I know it might not apply to a lot of people, but I'm thinking like, what is my audience going to resonate with most? So I'm going to go ahead and scan through here, and you could play it as well. Okay, so I read it. I think it'll be good for our audience. The other thing I would recommend doing is playing a snippet of the audio to see the level of sound. So I can already tell, because these lines are pretty thin, that the audio is probably picking up small. So I'm going to check that. So it is a little off. So there's a couple ways that you can adjust this. And I think I might have made one earlier. So if you click on the track, not at this top part, but if towards the middle, you will get this track setting, and you can touch or select the individual track. So I've ended up using one of them, which was a volume increase. So I'm going to reset it to 100%. This is one way to do it, but it can sometimes make it so that the audio quality gets affected. Oh, I had both. There's also the magic audio, which right now is experimental, but I think having both of them messed it up. So I'm going to play back without the high volume and see if that fixes it. Okay, that was way, way better. So now that we have our audio fixed, I'm basically going to, and I know I want this, I'm going to go ahead and play through the full thing. And I'm listening for parts that are repetitive, if it's a complete thought. I'm also looking at how long the clip is to start out. So it's 56 seconds, which means I have some space. I'm aiming for 40 to 60 seconds for a short. But I don't have a ton to cut off on. And based on my first skim, I know that I probably want to keep the majority of this. So when I'm cutting dead space, I'm kind of keeping that in mind, like how much work I have to play with. Sometimes when you come into a short, you'll find that the magic clipping AI, it took a segment of the story, but it didn't get the whole thing. And so you might end up actually adding more on the end. So you can highlight something and you can restore it. When you restore it, if that was to complete the thought, note like it doesn't do these automatic getting rid of pauses. So these dots are 1 second pauses, these are filler words, the squiggles, ums, ahs. So you'd want to come back in, and if I tap this here and I hit the backspace, it'll get rid of those. And then if you want to get rid of a whole segment, like I won't keep this, then you can back it up. But that's kind of how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and listen through it, figure out where the repetition is, and then remove anything that is extra. And more is less. Usually if things are repetitive in wording, it ends up sucking out the impact. So keep that in mind. So because of this choppiness, sometimes when it plays back, I just want to give this tip. I will, if it gets stuck on one of these pauses because it's loading to spring itself forward, I will click to the top of the next area, and it can kind of help it. But sometimes if I get frustrated, because the tech is still getting quicker, I will just give my best guess and then I'll export it. And sometimes it's quicker to export it, play it in the audio, than mess around with this and get out of the groove, because I've got another tab that I can go try to edit another one. So do with that what you will. But once you get it to the place where you think it's worth, trying to export it and seeing if you like it, then I will add the captions. So you go over here. We like these captions that follow one by one, but you've got multiple options, whatever, reflects the aesthetic you like. I like large or extra large for the size, but again, that's personal preference. I think at least large helps. Then you want to drag it centered to the bottom, and you want to leave some space for social media icons so it doesn't get covered. This still may get covered, but I don't want to cover anyone's face. Some of the other things that I consider doing is some of these layouts. I think my cursor, oh, there it is. Depending on who's talking sometimes, it can be awkward if it switches. Like, this is a really deep personal moment with where the main speaker's connecting. So I'll click this layout and I'll change it back to the speaker. Or sometimes I might do like a split screen between, both. And so you'll see when I click down here too, it'll show me where I'm at in the transcript, which is nice. And then there was another one with just John that I think would be good to maybe split screen. It's good to have that variety of, layouts, like not just seeing one speaker or the other. And you kind of want to get your face and exposure out there as the person building your personal brand through this podcast as well. So you want to balance that, but the smart layers do that. I wouldn't normally do all with, I would typically do some with just John because this is a very personal moment. I'm choosing to split screen when John comes because it's really talking to the speaker. And I could honestly just do him, but I'm going to do it like this, see how it reads when I export it, and then if I don't like it, I can change it. So I'm going to hit export. John prefers it to be the highest quality, so we're going to do that. But at least 1080, that's the standard. We want to remove the watermark, which is also standard. If there was a huge disparity between audio levels, which sometimes happens, like one I did very recently, where someone's really quiet, normalizing audio is good, but it may override some of the other changes you made in audio, so you'll just have to see what's better, but I would just use it for the extreme disparities. And then remove background noise is also very helpful. A lot of people will click pens or they'll tap on their, when they're making a point, their counter or whatever, or dogs will bark. One time John had somebody vacuum their office during the podcast, which is actually insane. So, apply those as needed. I'm going to hit export. When I do that, it's going to prompt this screen, and I like to click keep editing, and I like to do this. So I will click and drag, and then I will Command C or Control C, copy that, and then I will, in my ChatGPT account, I made this prompt for you guys that you can input there to train it. But I am just going to type caption this one, and then I'm going to copy that caption. So this doesn't scratch out any parts that are left out, but it still gets the gist and it creates these decent captions without having to think. So while that's happening, I will create a new post. So I will go to where we are scheduling out, which we've been cranking in just a few days, which is why this is a pretty epic system. So this used to take an hour per short, and now I can probably get a handful done in an hour. So that's pretty epic. So then I'm just going to scan here and think about which one would be the best. So I went ahead and selected one, and then I'm going to copy that over. The next available time, I also like to have another tab of buffer, so I can see what the date is in the day. This isn't so bad when you're starting on the first day of the week, but then as you go, you tend to forget what day it was. So we're scheduling out for March 1st, and then I'm looking at the time based on our release time of the date. I want to make sure it's after that. So we release Sundays at 6. This auto did for 8, but it doesn't always, so you want to watch that. And then I need to get my export. And so one of these tabs I like to make for my export, and I usually like to make that the third of the 3 tabs. So I will go to the export side of this guy's studio, and as predicted, it's still exporting. So then what I would typically do is I would go and start this process again for another video and kind of keep that rhythm going back and forth. If it will load. Okay. I forgot to mention that you can also rename these. So I would have named this like short form 1, JSON, Sweeting, and then it gives you an auto topic of the file, and it just told me that I finished exporting. So I'm going to go ahead and download that. For time's sake, I won't go and pop into another one, but I like to go popcorn back and forth between them while I'm waiting for exporting, which saves me a ton of time. So I recommend doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and open this download on my computer media player and listen to it once through, see if there's any edits I want to make, and I'll come back. Okay, so I think it's pretty decent. I actually created a short from one of the days that said, with content, if it's a B minus, it's probably an A plus to everybody else, and to go with it. So I've been using that filter a lot, actually. And you know, perfection is the enemy of progress. So I think that's over a B minus for sure. Really good. And so then I would pop back over here. Because we're posting to YouTube, you need a title for YouTube. So I will ask it for a YouTube title. And if you're doing it for the first time, you're probably gonna have to type more than YouTube title, please. But I've been doing it a lot in this chat. And so, like I've mentioned before, this is my production folder, and each of these chats for the podcast generate different things. And so I can be shorter and clearer because they've all been trained, which is very helpful. So I'm going to scan this and pick one. Okay. So I typically just pick whichever one like stands out to me. And then I will hit customize. So for Instagram and TikTok, you can change the thumbnail. You can decide if this little tweak is kind of worth your time. The interface on here isn't the best, but you can kind of click around and pick one with some text that might be intriguing. That one looks B minus worthy to me. Good enough. Sometimes I'll be thinking of particular text, and then I'll try to find that. For Facebook, it's a video, so you want to make sure it's a reel. For LinkedIn, I don't click anything. For YouTube, you are required to have a title, so that's where I put the title. And you want to make sure that it's selected for the appropriate category. The first time it was on like auto and vehicles, so we definitely need to change that. And then again, for TikTok, you can edit the thumbnail. So looks good enough to me. You is a really good word to start shorts with, so I don't mind that. It should be curiosity provoking. And then from there, you can click schedule. And then you have this really like rewarding event because within, 10 minutes plus a little bit extra of me talking, I was able to do something that would have taken probably 2 hours in the past. So I believe that was everything that I wanted to cover. As always, let us know if you have any questions, and feel free to share some of your posts, and we can learn a little bit about your podcast and your world in the community tab.